Hello there, Tom here from the Run Testers. In this video we are going to be doing a versus of the Asics Megablast and the Saucony Endorphin Speed 5. Let's have a look at these two shoes. The Asics Megablast costs £210 or $225. It weighs 225 grams or 7.9 ounces for men in a size 8 and the drop is 8mm. Saucony Endorphin Speed 5 costs £180 or $175. It weighs 242 grams or 8.5 ounces for men in a size 8 and the drop is 8mm. The Saucony Endorphin Speed 5 continues the shoe's legacy of comfort and versatility with a few updates to improve the experience. Although it still uses the same PWRRUN PB foam in the midsole as its predecessor, it seems to have been tweaked slightly to feel softer. That midsole works alongside an updated geometry and plate design for a smoother and more natural ride with added stability. The outsole has also been modified with expanded heel coverage aiming to improve durability, and there's a new upper made from a lightweight single layer engineered mesh to improve breathability and comfort. It's not a major overhaul to the Endorphin Speed 4, but there are enough changes to provide a slightly evolved ride. The Megablast is the new super trainer on the block, following on from the widespread popularity of the excellent Superblast and Superblast 2. It's a running shoe designed to deliver a lightweight, responsive ride across a range of sessions, aiming for increased versatility over its older siblings. It does that with an FF Turbo squared midsole designed to balance a cushioned and smooth ride with a high level of energy return with each step. The Asics Grip outsole is built to enhance traction and control, supporting smooth acceleration and efficient energy use. And the engineered woven upper is both lightweight and breathable, keeping your feet cool when picking up the pace.
Here comes the fit of the two shoes. I've got my normal size here, which is a UK 9, US 10 for both of these brands. I've got a good fit with both of the shoes, got enough room around the toes, good hold around the heel and midfoot. They're nicely padded around the back without having too much stuff there, so they are good for relaxed, easy runs without being overbearing or too heavy for faster stuff. So all round I've had no concerns with the fit on either shoe, no heel rub or anything. So I would stick to your normal running shoe size.
First up, let's talk about fit then. The Saucony shoes tend to fit me like a glove. They're really natural on the foot. I really like the way that they feel like they belong on my foot, and the Speed 5 is absolutely no different. I get really good clearance across the end of the toe box. There's a reasonable amount of flex in that toe box too. I think these hexagon mesh uppers make everything really nice and breathable. I'd say these shoes sort of tread the line between hold and flex really well. There is a bit more forefoot space than you've got in the Speed 4. Overall, I got really good lockdown across the top of the midfoot. Lace lock security was spot on. I was a bit worried about the heel collar change to a slightly narrower style, but again, no issues. They just held really well, no slipping at all. Yeah, if I was going to take them into sort of longer than marathon territory, I might go half a size up just to get a little bit of extra room towards the end of the toe box, a little bit more sort of space around the toe knuckles. But overall, in the Speed 5, I'd recommend going true to size. When it comes to the Megablast, the fit was generally sound. The only real issue that I had was up front in the toe box. The taper here is quite dramatic, sort of, and that, it's not quite as roomy as something like the Superblast. And that sharp taper, I think, it just has a little bit of a lack of clearance on the outside edge of the toes, and I suffered a little bit of rubbing on my little toes that was noticeable when I took my runs sort of over an hour. It'd be a bit of worry, I think, for runs that went further than that, particularly sort of over 2 hours or 3 hours, that kind of thing. I think if I went half a size up, though, I think I'd be swimming in the shoe because everything else sort of felt just about right in terms of the locked-in fit in the heels and the midfoot. But I would say you'd be smart to sort of try half a size up if you really are worried about that.
So the fit for me in these two shoes, pretty similar actually. There's actually quite a lot of space in both of these shoes. The Asics Megablast, like the Superblast, is slightly long, so there's quite a bit more space before my big toe. But also the forefoot and the midfoot I do find to be pretty roomy for what is essentially a performance shoe. There's definitely a bit of space for me, a bit of wiggle room across the length of the shoe. It doesn't feel very narrow to me. There's a nice bit of padding around the back, but it's also very easy to get a nice lockdown fit in this shoe as well. So I definitely stay to my UK size 8 in the Megablast. The Saucony Endorphin Speed 5, the updates, there has been a few updates to this shoe, and one of them is the space in the shoe. So there's definitely a bit more width in the forefoot of this shoe, and I think a bit in the midfoot as well. It definitely feels like a roomier fit. But not. It doesn't go too far. It's still very comfortable. Once you tie the laces down, it's very nice and easy to get a good lockdown fit in this shoe, and I've not had any issues at all. So yeah, definitely stay to my UK size 8 in both of these shoes.
So in testing, I've clocked hundreds of miles in the Saucony Endorphin Speed 5, everything from easy 45-minute runs up to 90-minute mixed pace runs. I've done sort of 6-mile progression runs where I moved through the gears to around 10k pace. I've clocked around 50 miles in the Megablast, including 2 10-milers. One of those was a 6-mile progression run, moving from easy up to steady pace through to around 5k pace. I did a 10k with a 19-minute 5k in the middle to test the upper pace. I've also done some really easy hour-long kind of just plods in the Megablast. Now, I think a lot of runners are going to love the Megablast. If you like big cushion bouncy energy, this shoe delivers. I liked it, but I didn't love it. I'm going to tell you why. At my easier paces, I found the stack kind of incredibly soft and a bit mushy, a bit squidgy. You know, there's a super compliant foam here that I think allows for quite a lot of movement underfoot. And that for me created some instability that I felt sort of further up the chain in my knees. It was only when I got moving around marathon or half marathon pace that I really started to love the Megablast. It really unlocked a light, lively, bouncy energy that felt smooth thanks to the rocker, lighter and sprightlier than the Superblast as well. I wasn't convinced by it for anything faster than half marathon pace, where I found it a bit too bulky. On the flip side, the Endorphin Speed 5 I think is a shoe with balance and poise. It feels fast and light but comfortable, not exposed or overly minimal or racy. I think the ride is more akin to the Sonic Blast from Asics, snappier with a more direct feel and a stiffer edge compared to the Megablast sort of big bouncy compress and return midsole. And I think the Endorphin Speed 5 absolutely performs better for faster intervals and whatnot, mainly because there's less shoe on the foot, there's a bit more ground feel, it's a bit more snappy and immediate, a bit more fast returning. I think the Speed 5 works better on the track too, where the Megablast sort of feels a bit unstable in the forefoot.
Okay, so this is an interesting versus because these are two shoes that are quite similar in a lot of ways now. The Superblast and the Speed, similarities in some ways, but they are quite different shoes. Whereas the Megablast now has become, or is now, oh, it's a new shoe, is now a shoe that is a bit more versatile than the Superblast and the Superblast 2. It feels a bit better at running at speed. It's still got the benefits of the Superblast 2, but it just feels like it's a bit quicker on picking up the pace. It's a bit lighter, but it's also got all those benefits that you associate with the Superblast 2. Absolutely love the Megablast. I think it's an absolute treat to run in. What I find about the Megablast is that like the Superblast 2, which is one of my favourite shoes of all time, and the Superblast, it has that lovely cruising, smooth feel to it. But this midsole just feels like there's a bit more to it. There's a bit more energy in it. It just feels like it's got a bit of a quicker pickup. Whereas the Superblast 2, I would have reserved for cruising pace, tempo runs, that sort of thing. I would say that the Megablast can do all those things, but it is actually a lot more versatile now. I'd definitely be happy to use this for interval sessions. I'd be happy to use it for racing even, because I think it's got a lot of those benefits that maybe the Superblast 2 didn't have, especially for shorter races. I think I might actually be using this for Loch Ness Marathon on Sunday, because I'm not going to go for a particularly fast time, so I want a shoe that's going to be nice and comfortable at a consistent pace, but still feels like it's got a lot of energy in it. And that's what the Megablast does. It's brilliant. It ticks all those boxes. It's a fantastic shoe. It's a fun shoe to run in. If you go out for an easy run, it's still very fun, and you make you feel like you can run a bit faster in it. It's great. The Saucony Endorphin Speed 5, now, they're very similar in the sort of versatility of this shoe. If you've used any of the previous speeds, you'll know that that's sort of what the sweet spot of the shoe is. It ticks loads of boxes for runners. It is a shoe that feels like it's got a nice level of responsiveness. You feel like you can pick up the pace really quickly in this shoe. Also feels like you can run for a long time in it, and it's relatively comfortable. So there's a lot of similarities with the Megablast, but the Megablast, I think, wins over the Speed 5 in that that midsole is just a bit lively. There's a bit more bounce to it. It just feels like there's more energy in this shoe, and it feels like the responsiveness comes with that combination of energy return as well, whereas the Speed 5 is very much a more traditional, natural feeling fast shoe. It feels more responsive, it feels nippy because of that plate, but that midsole is just a little bit firmer, and there's not as much energy in the midsole of the Speed 5. The benefit of it really comes from that traditional feel of a lightweight, fast, nippy shoe, but you don't feel like you're bouncing along in this shoe in the same way that you do in the Megablast. So that's where the real difference comes in these two shoes. I think they're both very versatile, and I think there's a lot to do with preference as well. I know that the Megablast is probably not everyone's cup of tea because it is a big shoe. There's a lot of foam in it, and If you prefer a more conventional feeling shoe, then you've got the Speed 5, which definitely does feel a bit more conventional. I think they're both fantastic shoes. I think they're both brilliant shoes for all types of runs. But I do think the Megablast is just there's just a bit more to it for me over the sorts of runs that I would do in the shoe. The outsole on the Megablast is fine. It's not amazing. It's got the sort of standard Asics outsole on it. Rubber's fairly thick on these sections, but there's a very, very big area of exposed midsole foam in it, and I'm not sure this midsole foam is particularly durable. So no signs yet because the rubber's quite thick, but that's what I'd be watching out for. The Saucony Endorphin Speed 5, it has had some updates to the outsole, pretty similar to what you've seen on the previous versions. Pretty good, in fact. It's a good outsole on the Speed. It's a lot of coverage on the front and back. Still got this quite big exposed section on it, it's pretty much on a par with the Megablast, to be honest. I'd say they're both solid outsoles, but there is a lot of exposed midsole on them, which I'd be wary of.
So Speed 5 and the Megablast are both really good shoes in my opinion. I've done a lot of running in both of them, about 160k in the Megablast, I think just shy of 100k in the Endorphin Speed 5, using them for every kind of run. They are both really versatile shoes, that they go about it in quite different ways. They are quite different styles of design, and the ride feel is quite different, but both of them are exceptionally versatile. I've done fast tempo runs in both, interval sessions in both, a lot of easy running in both. I think I've done an all-out park run in the Endorphin Speed 5, and every single time I run in either shoe, I feel like it's a really impressive ride. The Megablast though is the bigger, bouncier shoe, that's for sure. Like, you've got that really high midsole stack, and that does give you less ground feel than you get on the Speed 5, but you do get a lot more bounce off the shoe. It's a bit softer, I would say, as well, and more comfortable because you have got that extra foam under the forefoot in particular. And like I say, it's a really bouncy ride in the Megablast. That's where you get the speed in that shoe from. It's got quite a stiff feel, despite the fact it's the unplated shoe of the two, but you get pushed onto that forefoot nicely and then get a lot of bounce out of that deep layer of foam. The Endorphin Speed 5, in contrast, is a lower shoe, considerably lower, especially under the forefoot. It's a bit more rockered. You've got the plate in there. It's got a firmer feel, very fast turnover. That's been the signature feeling of the Endorphin Speed line from the beginning for me, is that speed roll rocker really moves you through your foot strike very quickly. Got a generous amount of foam at the back of the shoe though, so it is comfortable at easy paces, landing there as a heel striker. Then that fast turnover pushes you onto the forefoot, and you get a little bit of ping from the foam and the plate to help you maintain fast speeds, or even just tick along at easy paces. For me, the Megablast in particular excels as an all-rounder. Like, I'm very happy running in it at any distance, at any pace, really. I think that's maybe where it has the edge over the Speed 5, is over those longer distances. I think you are getting more comfort if you're running either easy or at pace, actually, because when I'm running faster in the Speed for a long time, sometimes the way it kind of pushes you through onto that forefoot gives me a little bit of discomfort under the ball of my foot, because it isn't the highest stack shoe there. Like, compared to shoes from 5-10 years ago, it's pretty high stack, but compared to something like the Megablast, you're getting a lot more foam on the Asics under the forefoot, and that not only gives you a slightly deeper feeling of bounce, it also protects that area of the foot a bit better on long runs, and I do think you get a bit more comfort from it. But the Speed 5, having that slightly lower design, does give it a nimbler feel, a more direct feel. If you're running short reps or races, really, I think it does give you a slightly faster feeling than the Megablast. The Megablast is great for locking in and cruising in at a good pace for a long distance. I think it'd be a pretty solid marathon shoe, that kind of thing. Speed 5 feels a bit revier, a bit faster. If I was going to go and tear up a 5k or something like that, using one of these two shoes, it would probably be the one I'd lean to, because it has that nimbler feeling. It feels a little easier to take corners at it at speed. I don't think there's a big difference in stability. I think the Megablast, although a lot taller, is wider, and for me is a pretty stable shoe, and the Speed 5's always been pretty stable for me as well. But in terms of really running fast, that agile feel you get from the Speed 5, I think, can help a little bit. That said, if you're going to go then for longer distances running fast, the extra cushion on the Megablast does help, like I say. And I have done like a 15-mile lower end tempo in the Megablast, and it just felt fantastic for that. Really good at protecting the body, giving you a little bounce back, and making the speed feel a bit easier. I think in terms of how you feel the following day after a hard workout in either shoe, I think you get a bit more protection from the Megablast as well. Did do a short run in both shoes at the same time, and the softness, the bounciness of the Megablast really did come across. Like, it is a bigger shoe on the foot, you can certainly feel that. It doesn't really feel that blocky to me though, whereas something like the Superblast 2 sometimes does for me. I think it's got a slightly bigger heel. The Megablast does have quite a flowing ride for me, and then all that extra bounce. Speed 5, like I say, you've got that nimbleness, that extra ground feel, that fast, smooth rocker. It's a really good feeling as well, but you do notice, I think, primarily the extra bounce on the Megablast when I ran in both of them at the same time.
So my verdict on these two shoes, they're both great shoes. But they're both quite expensive shoes as well. There is a big price difference between the two, about £30 in the UK. I think that based on the fact that they're both quite expensive, you're going to want a lot from what you're getting out of these shoes. And I think the Megablast is by far the best value for money, because it just feels like it does a lot more, especially for somebody like me who really likes bounce and energy return in a shoe. I'd go for the Megablast easily for anything really. I think with the Superblast 2, I might say that the Saucony Endorphin Speed 5 was probably better at some things. It's better at shorter, faster bits, better at maybe interval sessions, things like that. I don't think that's the case anymore. I think the Megablast can do everything that the Saucony Endorphin Speed 5 does, but a bit better for somebody like me who likes the energy and bounce. However, if you are a runner that maybe likes more conventional feeling shoes, you like to feel a bit closer to the ground, not that it's a particularly low stack height in this shoe, but it just feels a bit more natural and a bit more responsive with that sort of firmer midsole foam, it's probably the better option for you, because the Megablast is a big chunky shoe with a lot of bounce in it, and not everybody wants that. But for me, for my style of running, for the cost of these shoes, I'm saying the Megablast all the way.
So my verdict on these two shoes, I think if you're getting one shoe to do absolutely everything in, the Asics Megablast is the one I would get, because unless you really favour a more direct, firmer feel to your running shoe, the Megablast I think is the better option for long runs in particular. If you're doing something like marathon training and you're regularly heading out past 20, 25, 30k, I think the Megablast will really come into its own at those distances compared to the Speed 5. If you're looking at picking up one shoe to add to a rotation to be your speed trainer, it's a lot closer then. I think the Speed 5 probably would have the edge, especially if you're going down the track and ripping out 400s or something like that. It's a shoe that does that a bit better, I think, than the Megablast. So yeah, you could look at it that way. I think both shoes are great at both jobs, being an all-rounder or being a speed shoe, but the Megablast excels, I think, on being that more comfortable, protective option and great for those long runs. Speed 5 probably has a bit more edge as a speed shoe. I think for me, as I'm nearly always marathon training, I quite rarely actually hit top speed in any of my sessions. It's always kind of lots of reps, long reps, minimal recoveries, designed to tire you out while running pretty quick. Megablast worked really well for me, so it'd probably be the shoe I'd pick from the pair. But then we've got to talk about value. Like, this is the problem with every Megablast video, is always going to come back to the price, and the price, is so high that I'd get the Speed 5 myself. Even if I did prefer the Megablast, the difference in price isn't worth it, because the Speed 5 is such a good shoe. Like, I love the shoe as well. I loved using it for lots of runs. I did a lot of long marathon training runs in the Speed 5 as well, and really enjoyed it. Even if the Megablast maybe has a slight edge for me in how I like the ride feel, it doesn't have enough of edge to make up the difference in price, especially as the Endorphin Speed is a line that gets reduced now. The Speed 4 is often in sales and pretty similar to the Speed 5, so maybe I'd even look at that ahead of both of these shoes. But the question of value will always be surrounding the Megablast. It's a fantastic shoe and performance, as I talked throughout that entire run test, but I'd still probably get the Speed 5 because it's that much cheaper and a really good shoe itself.
Verdict then, and for me, you've got two really excellent shoes that potentially have the capability to cover similar runs. They're great daily mileage shoes. How they get there, though, I think is really quite different, and which shoe you choose will hang on whether you want big and bouncy or more direct, agile and controlled. The Megablast has that increasingly common, and it seems to be sort of quite popular combination of cushion and bounce, and it's really excellent when you're cruising around marathon pace or half marathon pace. It's undoubtedly a good shoe that builds on the legacy of the Superblast with a lightness, an energy, an added raciness that definitely gives it a dose of added marathon and half marathon training, I think, and racing potential. I think a lot of runners, particularly those who love a big stack, super soft, bouncy ride, will love this shoe. I can see some people racing a marathon in them as a non-plated option as well. By contrast, the Speed 5 is maybe starting to feel a bit more traditional, maybe sort of old school than these softer, springier shoes, but it's still a cracking all-rounder. It's light and fast enough for your faster training miles. It's better, I think, at the very top end than the Megablast because of that snappiness. It's just about cushioned and protective and smooth enough to handle slower and longer miles as well. I much prefer the speed of response of the midsole and the rocker that's snappier even at slower paces compared to the Megablast, but that's a personal preference. I don't like things that are too squidgy and too soft. I think it's maybe more stable and reliable underfoot at those slower paces too, the Speed 5. So for me, the Speed 5 is the more versatile shoe, better at the top end, maybe not as exciting at marathon pace, but better at the slower end, provided you don't want that biggest of cushion. I think the Speed 5 still, to me, feels like it can handle it all, where the Megablast sort of shines mainly when I'm moving around marathon to half marathon pace. So for me, I think the Speed 5 is the better option, but I 100% think that fans of bigger stack and bounce will prefer the Megablast. So if that's you, don't listen to me. If you like the ride of the Speed 5 and want an Asics shoe that's a closer match, I would definitely suggest checking out the Sonic Blast. It's cheaper than the Megablast, and I think it fits a closer profile to Saucony's excellent daily trainer.
That's it, was on this Versus. Thanks a lot for watching. Don't forget to like, subscribe and click that little bell. And if you're going to catch and below, you can find your podcast, which comes out a couple of times each month. Thanks a lot for watching. Catch you next time.
Bye.